Every life has a story, and every story is worth sharing. Your story, my story, and our story speak of victory and defeat, joy and sorrow, resilience and vulnerability. They are not just our story, they are Christ's story in us. They are Kingdom Stories from Down Under.
Well, it's great to have you once again at Kingdom Stories from Down Under. Tonight I am with Adam Meredith from Red Door Church in Coburn, a suburb not far away from Perth, just south of Perth, a suburb coming up, a hub really coming up, massive hospital very close to it, shopping mall, everything there in the hub, in the center of it all, influencing the local community and having fun in the process. Adam, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Red Door Church.
Red Door.
Red Door. Why Red Door?
Funny story. So it was in 2012 that we started.
Yeah.
And I was a part of a church called Riverview Church.
Yes.
Who's been in the city for a long time. Phil Baker was the senior minister there for a long time, and I sort of sat under him for quite a while. And originally it was a campus of Riverview.
Oh, it was?
A southern campus.
Okay.
Phil got ill, and there was some change of leadership, and they decided to release the campus and the community that was there to become its own community, its own church community.
Yeah.
So they asked my wife and I if we'd like to be a part of leading this new church.
Did you start it, or were you involved in planting it from?
Yeah, we were like the campus pastors.
You were.
So we'd already had a lot of trust, a lot of community, a lot of connection with the people.
Now Hayden was now in at the helm.
Yeah, Hayden Nelson was the senior minister at that time.
Yeah.
And then he felt like the whole campus thing was something that he inherited.
Yeah.
Wasn't necessarily his cup of tea.
Yep.
So they decided to release it. And funny enough, myself and my wife Dale, we were really asking a question and saying, God, we've sensed you put in our hearts to lead a church, but we don't know how it's going to unfold.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it kind of landed on our lap really clearly from him, not by our doing. Does that make sense?
It just, it naturally came.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we had to come up with the church name. And my wife's the real practical one.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit more the creative one.
Okay.
So my wife's like, Faith Central, because we're in Coburn Central, right? Yeah. So she's like coming up with all these sort of practical geographical names.
Hey, I'm going to use that maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Or somebody will.
Please, it's yours. Take it.
Take that. Faith Central.
So I had this idea of initially of open doors, and then I was like, well, there's a wonderful ministry called Open Doors Ministry, and didn't want to confuse people. And then we live on a street called Sacred Glade, which is a wonderful pastor's street name. Yeah. And but Sacred was a bit, it's a little bit
too
old
sacred.
school. Yeah, maybe a bit too sacred. But the word red was in the word sacred, S-A-C-R-E-D. And then it just sort of dawned on me, the Red Door. And what was funny, when we were making that decision, we had one of our board members, elders of our church, he owns some Subway stores. Yeah. And he was road testing this name with a lot of different people in his kind of, workspace. Yeah. And I said, what do you think of when you think of Red Door? And some people said, well, it's like a perfume or maybe a brothel, and that's a red light district. Very, very clearly, it's not that enough. But we'll take anyone, And then I think it was. He said to us at that time, he's never explained the gospel so many times when he's explained the Red Door, which in essence is suggesting, hey, there's a story in the Old Testament, the story of Moses, and God is rescuing his people. God sends the plague, the most devastating plague, to try and force the hand of Pharaoh. And the firstborn of every family would pass away, would perish when a spirit of death would come over the nation of Egypt. And so, but God didn't want his people to perish. Yeah. So he came up with a plan. Take a lamb, slaughter the lamb, take the blood of the lamb, and make the door red. Okay. It's a little bit of creative license. It's a doorpost. It would have tripped out. Come on.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good.
But it gives you a gospel opportunity to share. Yeah. What is this red door about? He's the doorway in which we come into a relationship.
Oh yeah, red, the blood of Jesus. Yeah. It's the entry point. No, I get it. As I said to you, I think I mentioned just before the show. Initially, when I saw Red Door, I thought Irish, because I've been to Ireland and I've seen a lot of red doors, and I thought maybe there is that heritage, but obviously no.
But what we've discovered afterwards was that we realised that historically red doors have meant many different things.
Yeah.
One of them has meant that if a house is debt-free, the door is painted red.
Yeah.
And also when some of the African American people were in slavery working their way to Canada, they would come across a door that was red.
Yeah.
It would be a sign that this house was a safe place. It was a place of refuge. It was a place of safety, which was amazing, you know.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so it's got a few different meanings, but
cover,
yeah.
spiritual cover,
Absolutely.
Protection, blood of Jesus.
But I think
beautiful.
You know, the reality is Jesus is the doorway
Yeah.
in which we come into a relationship.
It's very interesting.
with him.
Last year, during COVID, like in the first 2 or 3 weeks of COVID, was in March last year, I think. I started a group on Facebook, just a group, and I called it In the Closet.
Okay.
You know, just because I knew countries were going into lockdowns and places, and I thought, you know, just in this group I can have an input in those people who are a little bit afraid and they just want to have that, you know, input in a private setting. So I called it In the Closet, and the branding, the logo of that group has a massive stripe of red on top.
All
it's
right.
it's like the doorpost,
Yeah,
but just the doorpost is
Yeah,
covered in red.
so good.
I'll show you after this.
Oh, I love to
which
see.
is tremendous.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's great imagery, so powerful. Yeah.
and I think an image does, you know, it does seal it for people because they remember that a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they can associate it with something. If they have nothing to associate it with, it just goes away. But if there's a picture, there's an image.
Yeah. And I suppose we're not looking to make Red Door famous. We want to make Jesus famous in our Coburn area.
Yeah.
So the name should really present, you know, that mystery of what did Jesus actually do on the cross? What was his blood shed for? He is the Lamb of God.
That's beautiful.
And that's kind of what we've been focusing on.
So now, fast forward 9 years later.
Yeah, 9 years. Church has grown, and we're sort of growing as a community as well.
Yeah.
We're on a journey of creating a bit of a hub kind of space for our church family to not just be a church service, but to also facilitate sort of community activity that connects with our surrounding community. So we have
you are right in the shopping district.
Very close to the main shopping centre there, which is called Gateway Shopping Centre. Which again, gate, door, you know, it's all very symbolic.
Gateway Church.
Yeah. Oh, there's a church called Gateway Church in the
Mistaken.
area. No.
What came after?
They're great friends of ours, and they're good people. Yeah. So I think the journey has just been discipling. Yeah. Discipling people, leading people to Jesus, journeying with people, you know, making disciples. I think that's the key calling.
And are you running the Geo network there as well?
Yeah, so I've been I felt like from Phil Baker inherited a bit of a heart for unity in the body. Yeah. And so that had been something that I remember back in 2007 saying to Phil, hey Phil, is it okay if I try and gather the local pastors together? I think that then it was like once a month, maybe just to pray together. Yeah. And he was a big advocate. He started church together, which is always a big thing in our city.
Leadership breakfast.
Correct. Yeah. And so he said, yes, of course you can. Yeah. So since 2007 have been, you know, sometimes pastors aren't the easiest people to get a hold of. So it sometimes feels a little bit like herding cats. Yeah. But it's been a wonderful journey of relationship with many of the leaders there. And just believing together as a unified community. I don't really call it, you know, individual church names. I call it the Church of Coburn. Yep. The Church of Coburn is here to make a difference.
And I think that's nice, like, you know, a city kind of connect.
But it takes a long time. It takes a long time to build trust.
Relationship.
In order that together you can begin to do gospel-centered transformational works in a city. Yeah. But you can't do that alone. No. That's kind of where you can. But always that question that sort of haunts
me. You can
me.
do it event-based, but you can't do it on a continuous basis.
Yeah. And what could we do together that we couldn't do alone is a question I think that is a good one to ask. Because together there's a lot more people in the city who know and follow Jesus than there are, you know, just in a sense of your one local community.
Don't you? I have a frustration, and I'm not sure if you have it as well. The business world moves at such a fast pace. Decisions are made, strategies are implemented, In fact, if you don't reinvent yourself, you die basically because of all the challenges that come your way. The church gets away with so much at such a slow pace, don't you think?
I think the pace is an interesting one because we need to be aware of the times that we live in.
Yeah, I think we lag so far behind. I don't think we are going with the times. I think we lose so much in between.
Yeah.
Relevant.
I think it's an interesting tension because I heard someone say actually this week, God moves at walking pace.
Yeah.
So there's an interesting idea that the Father has a slowness in his ways.
Yes.
He's not running. He's not in a rush. He's not. And so there's this kind of idea of slowness, but at the same time, the world is going very fast. In the sense of, so I hear your point. There's a sense of this tension between, as a church community, we want to be quick to respond to the needs of the community. I think that's an area where we need to grow in terms of our ability to respond well. But at the same time, we walk closely with the Father, which is a slow-paced walk, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we want to respond well, respond
It is slow.
correctly.
But he walks all the time.
Yeah.
We only walk on Sunday. So, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Saying, like a business, let's say business operates 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Or 6 or 7, but minimum 5.
Yes.
Church generally operates 1 or 2 days a week.
Yeah.
A community service or some sort of a gathering or Bible study or connect groups. And the rest, yes.
Well, I think if our Christianity is limited to a Sunday or limited to a gathering, then we're missing the mark. We're missing the point.
Yeah.
Following Jesus is a 24/7 exercise. Yeah. So no matter where you're at home or whether you're at work or whether you're at a gathering, we should be bringing the kingdom of God no matter where our foot lands.
I don't think you can wait. There's no, in this Christian walk, you're either walking closer or away from God.
Yeah.
You're not holding the pace. I don't think you're ever holding the pattern.
Oh, for correct.
You're always, closer or further.
Yes.
So you're drifting and then you're coming back. You're drifting and coming back. And I think this is also growing frustration for us as leaders, is because a lot of the people, they're going astray and they're coming back. It's almost like it's a dance.
Yeah.
It's not a genuine walk.
Yeah.
Can two walk together unless they're agreed? I mean, if we walk together, we move mountains. There's such power in that agreement.
Yes.
And if we did the business as we do at church, we wouldn't be in business. You couldn't survive.
Yeah. No, it's so true.
You'd be eaten alive.
Yeah.
Your rent, your overheads, your staff, all the expenses that comes with running a business, you wouldn't be able to survive.
Yeah, I think the church has to respond. But I think as leaders, we've got to be the ones who are continuing to be close to Jesus in order that when he moves, we're able to move quickly with him. Yeah. So we're
readiness.
We're followers of Jesus, ready to move when he moves. Yeah. I think if the leaders aren't doing that in the church community, then it's hard to expect everyone else to be doing that.
That's right.
And so I think it starts with us. It starts with me. It starts with, as a leader, I've got to be keeping close in my fellowship, in my following Jesus. Yeah. And all I can then do is allow that sense of what is God speaking to me about to communicate that to the community. If they respond, fantastic. Yeah. If they decide to become lukewarm, they become to move away, that's very difficult. That tension between, you don't want to control people, at the same time you need to impart a compelling vision of what the Father's heart is and what he is doing in order that, hey, I want to come on this journey. I want to bring the kingdom. I want to be a part of what God is doing in our community today. Yeah. Not next week, not next month, not next year, but today. What's God doing?
It's to have that
today.
awareness, that spiritual awareness, to be ready to act.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll have to run because the Father did run towards the prodigal son.
Absolutely.
So, sometimes, if somebody else gets in the way, I think the reason why he ran is because he knew if somebody else got in the way, would have turned him back.
Well, I think his heart for love for people causes him to run.
Yeah, puts him into motion.
But I think his heart for his children is to move slowly so they can be relationship.
Yeah, so they can chat. So
exactly right. Be close. Yeah. But then when it's time to move, hey, let's move. Yeah. Let's take action.
But if you have children, How many?
Yeah, 3 children.
All right, we'll get into that shortly.
No worries.
But if you spend time with your child, let's say you spend half an hour today, tomorrow, and the day after, and then on the 4th day you're not going to spend half an hour with him, he's not going to be satisfied. He'll come back to you and hold you to it.
That's right.
Whereas we spend time with the Lord and we drift. We don't walk daily with him, even though we should. And we know the formula. That's funny, eh?
Yeah, it is.
Let's go back. Where did it all start for you?
Yeah,
Born
great.
and bred here in Perth?
Yeah, I'm a Perth boy, born here, raised here. I lived a couple of years in New South Wales, but back here, university here, studied accounting and finance at UWA. Then worked.
That makes you a good pastor.
Yeah. Well, I think
you won't get in trouble with your accounts, will you?
I'm pretty sure I was a pretty schmick, to be honest. My wife is an accountant as well. But
there's a good chance you'll make it.
I think we'll be all right. I worked for Ernst & Young as an auditor for a few years, and then did the whole professional year thing, chartered accounting qualification. And it was during my time at Ernst & Young. If you had to ask me back then, was I a Christian? I would say to you, yes, but it really was a nominal Christianity. It was really just a head faith. It was a recognition that I believe God made everything, made me, but I didn't have a living relationship with Him. And what happened was that within a month, it was like Jesus walked into our home, and my mum, my stepfather, myself, my brother, and now my wife, we all had radical encounters with Jesus in a way that we became fully devoted. And that was
not at the same time, but
within about a month, maybe a month and a half.
I hear.
And that experience for me was one where my stepdad, Chris, he dragged me to a Promise Keepers meeting. I don't know if you have Promise Keepers, a men's ministry thing. And they were doing a day-long seminar.
Okay.
And I went there. And the very first session, and I wasn't there reluctantly, but I went mainly because he invited me to go. And the first time I'd ever heard the gospel presented with a need to respond in some way. I'd never heard an altar call before. I'd never heard a come forward or respond or do something in response to this gospel that you believe. So I was the first down the front, that particular service. Yeah. And I remember saying, responding to the gospel, committing my life. And the rest of the day, I had water coming out of my eye sockets. Yeah. I was crying, but I wasn't like sobbing. Yeah. Like I'll be like, gee, how about those West Coast Eagles, hey? They were just, water was just coming out of my eyelids. Uncontrollably. And I knew something had happened. From that point, I was just like a sponge. I was going to as many church services as I could. I was doing night college. Yeah. I think 3 weeks in, I was going to an Anglican church in Karrinyup. Yeah. And this Anglican church was not your traditional Anglican church. This was very much a charismatic Anglican church. Okay. And I was leading the youth there, and within, maybe 6 months, this youth was originally like a babysitting club, and now there's like 40 kids who are all saved and all on fire for Jesus, and things were really happening. And my Dal and I have quite a bumpy background where we met at a nightclub. We didn't meet in the right sort of way. We did the wrong thing, but then we both have encounters with Jesus, right? So we actually had a time where her and I had a time apart. So we broke up, and we were just dating Jesus, so to speak, because he was doing heart surgery in both of us. And a little while longer, we actually reconnected, and I just knew the most attractive thing I'd ever seen in another human was someone who knew me warts and all, and my wife knows me warts and all, and I wasn't a very nice person without Jesus. Yeah. And she accepted me, and that was the most attractive thing I'd ever seen. And within 3 months, I proposed. And then 3 months later, we were married. Wow. And so you
both had separate encounters with Jesus, or you?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I was going to so many church services. I said, you've got to come and just come with me. Come with me.
So this is while you were dating her before?
Yeah, before.
Okay.
And that was at a church called Shiloh Church in Balga.
We bought that church.
Really? Small world. So yeah,
I had John Finkelby in that seat a few weeks ago.
Oh, John's a champion.
I actually shared the same office with him.
Really?
He sold me his office.
No way.
Yeah, for 15 years.
Oh, a lot of my family used to go to Shiloh. My grandparents lived on the street there, and
So we bought it, and then Triple C was, or C3 was.
yeah. So they moved over to
Hepburn Heights.
Yeah.
Pedri.
But that was just a wonderful moment. And she, same thing. She'd heard the gospel before, not heard a need to respond,
Yeah.
to do something in response to the faith that you've heard. So we started. We got married, and we left the Carrinup Church, and we started going to Riverview. And within maybe a few years, Dale was on staff there as an accountant, and I was on staff there as the media director.
Oh.
So I left accounting and finance altogether. And I went.
So you went on full-time job ministry per se.
Yeah, as the media director, which was looking after the television program.
Because at the time you were broadcasting.
Yeah, we were
On Sunday mornings.
Sunday mornings, and I think it was like 40 countries, and
Wow.
it was quite a busy time. So I didn't know anything about television, didn't know anything about, but I had a creative thing in me that when Jesus got hold of me, it was like the dormant creative thing that was in me got an opportunity to come out.
Yeah.
And it sort of became alive in a way that it was God, because God puts his stuff in us, right? We're made on purpose for a purpose.
Yeah.
That purpose was muted in some way. And we laugh because if you want to be a creative and an accountant, well, you probably go to jail, I didn't do any of that. So that was a real opportunity to be a sense of gospel-centered creativity. It was from there that Phil had this vision to do campuses that were video-orientated. And so I got involved in these campuses from a video perspective.
Yeah.
And I suppose leaving.
Were you broadcasting this live sermon from Riverview?
Yeah, I think at the time it was pre-recorded on a Saturday.
Okay.
And then Sunday morning it was ready to go.
Okay.
He was doing some innovative things with multiple screens and multiple angles, and it was all a bit different. But I think the experience for us was we'd come from a very large church, 2,000 people, 3,000, and then suddenly the campuses were very small, and I found myself falling in love with a smaller community where discipleship could happen more at a face-to-face level.
Here it was messy. You were with the people.
With the people.
Whereas at Riverview it was quiet, just with your team.
I'm not saying big church is wrong. I just know that for me, I suddenly became aware of how Adam's built. I'm built very much for relationship, and within the context of relationship, discipleship. And so we fell in love with the smaller expression.
It came alive.
Yeah, it came alive. And I remember saying to Phil, if you ever want us to be involved in campuses, I'm your man.
Yeah.
And then I think it was maybe 3 months later, he said, oh, you want to lead the Coburn community? So we said yes, and the rest is history.
Yeah. I love the way that your face lit up and we said yes. Because you know what happens? In Christianity, I see a lot of people saying, we don't know. I didn't want to do this, but then the Lord really pushed me to do this. Or, we were really invited, but it wasn't our thing. And I'm thinking, man, just say it. You wanted it.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a pastor and they wouldn't ordain me.
Right.
They didn't want me because I was a threat to them.
Right.
And if people ask me, do you want to be a pastor? I would say yes. And they would say, you're arrogant. Because you want to knock the tall poppy off his seat. And I'm thinking, no. The Bible says you should desire to be a prophet. You should desire this. This is biblical, guys. You just don't get it. And I've just realized, and the way you just said it, I want this. It's like, man, this is genuine. This is how it should be. You'd want people like that in your church, not people who say, I was forced really into this, but I thank God for it.
Yeah. I think there's a tension in the sense that there's an unknown.
Of course, unfamiliar.
We were scared, but at the same time...
But that's the beauty of it, the adventure.
Totally.
Yeah.
If you know the destination, it's called commuting.
Yeah.
Adventure is defined by the fact that you don't necessarily know what the destination looks like.
That's right.
So that sense of
it's a
uncertainty versus I'm certain about who God's made me to be.
Yeah.
And so therefore...
Because that doesn't change. You have the security. You have something that is unchanging in a sense.
Yeah.
But everything else can be worked out.
Yes,
and that's the beauty of it all.
Absolutely.
So you were born in Perth, not a Christian family?
No.
Okay. How many siblings?
Just one. I've got a younger brother. who's eight years younger than I am. My mum and dad divorced when I was 8 years old. And so I think back then my mum invested enough in me at an early age to have a faith that recognised God was real. Okay. So I didn't have to journey the God was real journey. It just the penny needed to drop when it came to. I remember asking the question, why did Jesus have to die? And I felt like sometimes I glimpsed it and it sort of slipped through my fingers, like this revelation of why did Jesus have to die? And I remember going, oh no, I don't think I'm ever going to get that back, like the truth.
Yeah.
And what I noticed was as I dwelt on the fact that Jesus paid the penalty of my sin, that became more and more real to me, to the point where I'm like, I have this now. I have this faith. He's given it to me.
For Red Door.
For myself firstly,
and
but the Red Door. I had it. I had the Red Door in my hands. I had Jesus in my hands, and more importantly, He had me.
You had the little brother, and then your dad left, or
mum and dad separated, and
you stayed with mum.
Yep, and mum was amazing.
It was a bub. You just had a little baby then, or the baby is from the second?
No. So he's my biological brother.
Okay.
So he's from my first dad. But funny, I suppose, that early age, I was 8 and he was a newborn.
Yeah.
I felt probably like I was stepping into a large amount of responsibility because I'm like becoming the dad for a while.
Yeah.
Which obviously is not...
You matured instantly.
Well,
a level.
There's a positive thing to it, but I think there's also a negative, that I tend to take too much responsibility for things myself.
Yeah.
But I think that was a huge learning thing for me. Having a young brother.
Did it hurt you at the time?
Oh, I think there's always going to be challenges when it comes to divorce and mum and dad.
You didn't experience, high emotional peaks or hurtful.
Yeah. I remember when Dad first left, there was a real tearing kind of experience as you're trying to discern the why of all this. That why. Fundamentally came down to the fact that my dad, when he was with his father, so his dad, my pop, had lung cancer, and in that lung cancer he had sort of like a week to live, and it was in that first week, that last week of his, that was the first time that he'd ever told my dad that I love you. So Dad grew up with such no certainty about the father's love.
Yeah.
And so when it came to me feeling like my dad was abandoning me, there was a really understandable why to it. It took me a while to work it out, but once I understood the why, it made things a lot more understandable. And I was able to show a lot more grace for my dad. So the why was such a critical aspect to that journey of coming from a broken family.
Did you ever get the answer?
Well, I think that's the answer. My dad and my dad's mum as well just did not grow up in a loving family. Didn't grow up in a family where they were valued and they had a sense of identity based on the fact that they were accepted by the family.
Yeah.
And when you don't have those question marks in your heart answered, you can go through life very insecure.
Because you're searching for an identity.
You're searching for an identity.
And then you're trying to achieve that.
Yeah. That's right. So Dad made some mistakes during that time, and but at the same time,
has he come to the Lord?
He has made a decision for Jesus. Absolutely. Where he's at the moment, I talked to him, and remember I asked him. I say, "Hey, Dad, how you going with Jesus?" And he's like, he'll tell you. Yep, Jesus is the Son of God. He knows.
Yes.
Is he living that way? I'm not 100% sure. Yeah. That's for the Lord and him to work out. But it's an adventure walking with family, I'll tell you.
Especially as a pastor,
they
hold you up to it.
Everything. Pressure. Always.
And then they say, don't preach it to me. Go back to the church. Tell it, family here, not church here,
Well, I think that's where you've got to be living it out. If you're not living it out, you're preaching.
So what school did you go to?
I grew up in Bayswater, so I went to a Catholic primary school growing up, and but I went to an Anglican church. So this is where very much early on we had a faith.
In Bassendean, you went to St. Mark's?
No, this was in Bayswater.
Okay.
I can't remember the primary school's name. It was a little tiny little Catholic school.
That's fine.
But in Bayswater, Anglican can't remember the name. Well, I remember they used to do wilderness camps in the middle of nowhere. These church camps were the best.
Yeah.
And so, my dad split up. And then we actually moved to the northern suburbs. So I actually grew up a lot in Craigie.
Yep.
And went to Craigie High School.
Okay.
No
longer
there. I think there was maybe...
My brother-in-law built a house on the side.
Oh, that's a great area.
The Vibe at Craigie.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, I was at that school, went from year 8 to year 12 there.
Yeah.
About 7 of us went to university, so it wasn't really an academic sort of school. We survived. But
you made it.
We made it. And then while I was there in year 11, year 12, Mum got remarried. Mm-hmm. And so we moved to Karrinyup. So I was still going to Craigie High School, even though we were living in Karrinyup for a while.
Up Mummy now.
Yeah, and so then went to university and...
which Curtin or ECU?
UWA.
And you did accounting?
Accounting and
commerce?
finance, yep, commerce.
Yeah.
And then when we first got married, we lived in Carlisle.
Okay.
That's a funny story because we got engaged, right? And the day after our engagement party, we had to buy a house. And the house we were looking at was on the same street Dale's dad grew up in.
Yeah.
My wife's, and the same street my dad grew up in. And at the engagement party, our grandmothers knew each other.
Wow.
But we didn't know this, right?
Such a small world.
So then we bought this house in Carlisle, on Bishopsgate Street in Carlisle.
Again.
Bishopsgate. Sacred Glade, Bishopsgate,
Yeah.
So that's beautiful. Been the journey, yeah.
So where did you meet Gail? You met her at...
Dale, yeah.
Dale, sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah, we met at a nightclub.
Yeah.
And it's not the most... I've told my church this story, so it's very much public knowledge, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
So I like to embarrass myself.
This is WikiLeaks, you know that?
Yeah, no, I thought so. I was just in the process of finishing university.
Okay.
And there was a pub in Northbridge, and between 5 and 6 o'clock they would offer free beer for an hour. And me and my friends would go and work out how many drinks we could have in 1 hour.
Oh.
Right? And I wasn't a sleazy person, but this one particular night I decided to make advances on this one girl who I hadn't met before.
What was she doing there? Again,
she was
3 drinks?
No, she was celebrating with a friend or something. They just finished some sort of study or something. And I remember meeting Dale there.
Were you drunk or not yet?
I was happy. I'll just say it wasn't a perfect meeting, right? It wasn't righteous at all.
So you went to her?
Yep.
At the bar?
Yep, at the bar. And I liked dancing, right? So immediately we had a dance and immediately there was some connection. And then,
she came and danced with you?
Yep. So winning. But I tell you, it was a very tumultuous relationship. We broke up, got back together multiple times. It was very obvious that we needed a rescuer.
Yeah.
We needed someone. We were broken. Both of us. We ended up using each other a bit like a crutch, you know. We were like finding identity in each other. It was just, it was not helpful. Bit of a train wreck, to be honest.
Yeah.
But when Jesus came, he actually took something.
What was she doing? Was she uni as well?
She was studying accounting, but she worked for her dad, who did a cabinet making business in Maddington.
Okay.
So he'd been doing that, and she was like the accountant or clerk for the family business. And so that's when I met her.
Okay.
And we ended up getting her a job at one of my clients at Ernst & Young. Yeah. At an oil and gas company. And then from there, she went and worked for Riverview as an accountant there. Okay. So yeah, a bit of a long story, but
where did you pop up the question to marry? How did you do it?
Yeah, great. No one's asked me that for a long time. Good on you.
Yeah.
So it was a Sunday, and
It's always a Sunday, isn't it?
It's always a Sunday. And we were in the city, and we decided to go to St George's Cathedral, which is the Anglican church. We went to their evening service. Before the service started, I got on a knee. I got on my knee and proposed. Like I was in the pew and she was sitting. So
in church?
In church, yeah, physically in church. So it's like a quiet service, right? Because St George's Cathedral is not like the most...
Dead silent.
Yeah, it's pretty quiet, you know.
So you didn't have to say much?
Well, you know, everyone clapped.
Oh.
Well, there was there. It wasn't many people there.
So did you just hold the service?
No, I was literally just an attender of
Okay.
the service,
Okay.
just sitting in a pew, and then I got out of the pew and kneeled in the aisle, the central
Yeah,
aisle.
during the... What was going on?
No, it was before. It was
Oh,
before the service started.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So, I embarrassed myself for a little bit.
Yeah.
And all I can remember to this day was when I put the ring on her, I remember putting it on the wrong finger, and I just felt so embarrassed. I was like, I set up this whole thing and I can't even get the finger right. But,
And she said yes?
She said yes. So that was...
What did you ask her?
What's that?
What did you ask her? Would you marry me?
Simple question, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And everyone clapped?
I think, just the people who could see what was going on.
And then you left or you stayed for the service?
Stayed for the service. And then we went up to...
You were officially now engaged because you were engaged in the church.
Engaged in the church. I was all witnesses. Then we went...
So you knew it was her when you made that commitment?
I think it was an interesting journey because we had dated for such a long time. It had been so off and on because Jesus had now entered our worlds in such a powerful way. Mm-hmm. I remember my friends at Ernst & Young, one of the things they just couldn't work out, because at Ernst & Young, I was very much the work really hard, and play even harder kind of atmosphere.
So popular.
Yeah, well, something like that.
Yeah.
And so all my friends at Ernst & Young, they saw the transformation. Yes. They saw the change.
Yeah.
And one of the changes when it came to relationships was when God says to marry Dale, I will marry Dale.
Yeah.
If God says something else, I'll follow. So I wasn't going, and they were shaking their heads. They didn't understand this new Adam. What the heck was he doing? And especially early on, I was a freak. Yeah. Free dress Friday, how you can just be a bit more casual in the office on Fridays. Yes. I used to wear a I am a Jesus freak t-shirt on Free Dress Friday. And people were just, so I was a bit tapped, right? Yeah. I was a little bit extreme, a little bit out of control. Not much wisdom yet, just...
A lot of love.
Just zeal for the Lord, know. And I remember being away in Melbourne because in Ernst & Young, it's like every year you have a graduate class who gets employed, and there was a number of us from Perth, and we were doing a training in Melbourne. Yeah. And I remember we're at some sort of cafe or something, and one of my friends who were working there, who knew Adam from the past and knew this new Adam, this Jesus-loving Adam, freak, we were at this cafe, and we're all like a big long table, and it was Jason, his name was, and I remember he slammed his fist on the table like bang so loudly that the whole cafe was silent. Yeah. And he said the question, Adam, what the hell is going on with you? Yeah. Like, he was very upset. Yeah. And it was like one of those moments where it was dead silence and everyone's looking at me, and I'm like, it's my first preaching gig, Yeah. So like, when you tap the mic and it's like, and like a bit of feedback, Yeah. And I remember just always saying to him, listen, I said, Jason, Jesus is real and he's changing my life. Yeah. That's all I said. And then all of a sudden the cafe noise just re-entered the equation, Beautiful. I think it was a big change. Your
first sermon.
My first sermon, very short.
A Peter moment.
A Peter moment.
Yeah.
But I remember that. They
3,000 repented?
Yeah, not that day. That was to come.
Yeah. But nor were you stoned to death.
Not yet.
Like Stephen.
That's right.
Stephen, yeah.
So the journey at Ernst & Young was wonderful. We had a group of Christians at Ernst & Young. We used to have Connect group or Life group before work. Yeah. In one of the boardrooms. And it was an amazing time.
It's a large organization. There's a lot of people. So in that critical mass, you got to have Christians.
Yeah, that's right. And there were Christians from because there were people who would come from other offices around the world. Yeah. So you'd have very much an international flavour in the office.
And I think corporately it was more accepted at the time. Probably less. It would be less and less now. But
I remember the partners at the time had to have a meeting to approve Christians gathering. Yeah. Because there were some question marks. But once they approved it, they knew it was relatively harmless.
It was kosher.
It was helpful to people.
Yeah. So, it was good for their emotional intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think well-being.
Yeah. So that was fun.
And then you had children.
Yep.
3 kids.
Yeah. So we've had Mackenzie, who's now turning 20.
Wow.
Harrison, who's turned 18 in March, and Charlotte is 16. So girl, boy, girl.
Okay.
And so Mackenzie is studying Bible college at the moment, she's doing great. She loves the Lord, and she's a real speaker. She's got a voice.
She's like you.
She's got something to say.
She's taken a lot of your DNA, hey?
Yeah. When you meet my wife, you'll also go, there's a lot of her in her as well. So, Mackenzie's doing great. Harrison has been a bit of a bumpy journey with Harrison. Harrison had a brain tumour 5 years ago.
Oh.
And it was the size of a mandarin, kind of in the middle of his head. And they had to do a pretty significant operation to remove it.
Yeah.
Cut his head open and remove it. And so he, it was benign, which was great.
Yeah.
So it wasn't cancerous. They removed most of it. It isn't growing anymore, but it's left some residual damage in his walking. So his right leg at the moment is unable to function. It's still strong. It's still able to push and work, but the walking gait isn't operating like it should. Yeah. And it's been the time when he's hit puberty as well, so his body's grown. And so that's a bit of an ongoing journey. We still believe some rehabilitation and things will be able to help him. Mm-hmm. He's got something that he would call focal dystonia. That's the medical condition that he has. So there's a little bit of a sort of a spasticity going on in his right leg. His left leg's fine.
Is he quite resilient? Has he got grit to fight?
Yeah, he's very phlegmatic, so that's helpful.
He just loves it through.
Yeah, well, it takes a lot to kind of get under his skin, so that's been helpful. Yeah, I think Mum and Dad have struggled the most with that journey. It
always is.
Yeah, that's been the hardest thing. When you see one of your own children struggling. But he's a champion young fella. He's a great listener, great talker, stories to tell. He's a wonderful young man. I know that this is the making of him. So these are difficult things, yes, but they're the things that form us. Yeah. I think it's having a forming process for him. And Charlotte...
Can you visualize the latter part of his life, or are you still clouded a little bit by the current situation?
Yeah, I think we're still a little bit clouded. It's still a bit day by day. Mm-hmm. I think we need... we're seeing a few different doctors at the moment just to see if there's anything else we can do to assist his journey. Yeah. But I think it's still early days. Yeah. The brain is crazy. Yeah. It's still in a very plastic forming state until you get to about 25. Yeah. So there's still a window of opportunity to rehabilitate and work with him. So we're still hopeful that there'll be some change. Plus, we serve a God who can heal.
Absolutely.
And so we're believing and trusting for good things for him.
And Charlotte?
Charlotte, so she's 16. She's homeschooled. So
the others were not?
Harrison was. He missed about 8 months of school. Plus his walking has been... It's very difficult to walk from class to class when you can't walk. Yeah. So we ended up homeschooling him. Yeah. And then Charlotte came along for the ride.
Oh, nice.
So she's doing year 11 at the moment.
With Dale?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and she's doing good. Yeah. But it's early days for Charlotte, But
how do you see homeschooling?
I think that you got to know your kids.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody. Yeah. I think that if you know your children and you know kind of where they're at, it can be a helpful tool. Yeah. I think it's not, like I say, it's not for everyone. My oldest, Mackenzie, she flourished at school. She did so great. And you talk to her about homeschooling, she'd be like, no, thank you. Yeah. She doesn't want to do that. Yeah. I mean, that's now, she's 19, turning 20. Yeah. But I think...
Was it the social interaction or just...
Our kids are very social because...
Made things. Things made sense and everything.
Yeah, I think she's very more academic than, say, Harrison or Charlotte. Okay. So that made it very easy for her.
She didn't need the one-on-one. Yeah. Things just made sense. She went on with it.
Yeah. And plus, because we're so involved in church,
Yeah.
socially, we don't have any problems with any
I
of
know.
that.
You never short of people.
Not too much of it, to be
Plus
honest.
dinners and
Yeah.
people coming over and
Yeah.
knocking at the door, and you're always with people. I know.
So I think if you're in a very isolated state and your children are more academic,
Yeah.
then I would suggest probably not for you.
Yeah.
But I think for certain kids, I think it's really helpful.
Yeah.
On the journey. So I know sometimes homeschoolers get a bad rap, but I think it can be very helpful.
Well, traditionally people were homeschooled, weren't they?
Yeah, that's right. Hundreds of years they happened for. Yeah.
So what's the next chapter for you?
Great question. I've been asking that myself a lot lately.
Yeah.
We are really excited about where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
Red Door is still early days for us. I long to see the Church of Coburn operating like a real body in that city, in that local government area.
Yeah.
We do little things where we'll shut our service down on a Sunday morning and we'll go love attack somebody else. And by doing that, we're going there. I don't go there and preach.
Yeah.
I don't do any of that. We're just going there to support what God is doing there. So everyone brings an offering on that day. The awesome thing with the Love Attack idea is that the other church, other than the leadership and the elders,
no one knows. Yeah.
So we get permission to do it from the leadership. Wouldn't do it otherwise.
Yeah.
But all these people, suddenly church.
Can they host you? Do they have enough seats to host you?
Well, that's the thing, right? So we end up saying to our church community at Red Door, listen, you might not get a seat. You're not going to get your kids in kids' church.
Yeah.
You need to come with your, almost sanguine hat on, to encourage someone in that church community. And that's been really powerful, not just for the community that you're going to be a blessing. So we do lunch and stuff in the car park for everyone and stuff. Yeah. But it's been a real blessing for our church family because they see other church communities that are different from us.
Yeah.
And they might do things differently, which sometimes is a bit of a rub. I don't necessarily like that.
That's why it's good that you're not going there to minister, because then you carry your own show there. It's almost your church in a different location.
Totally.
Whereas this way they can engage with what the local church is doing. I think that's brilliant. Yeah,
it's brilliant. It builds maturity as well, because our church family need to be able to go to another church family and see Jesus there.
Yeah.
Even if they do things slightly differently.
And it also shows that you're not threatened by other ministries, because some, pastors would feel hesitant to take their church to another physical location.
Yeah, if anything, it's only been a blessing for everyone involved.
Piet came with his church to our place, and they brought dinner, and we had, they crashed on us with a lot of love, which was just beautiful.
Oh, it's so powerful, so powerful.
And we had Paul Botha here, and Clive, and a lot of the local pastors. We have a good little hub here. So good. But it is beautiful.
Yeah, Funny, I have a real appreciation for the northern suburbs.
Yeah.
When my wife drives in the northern suburbs, she feels like it's another country, right?
Yeah. Well,
when I come, I feel like, I'm home,
Yeah.
So, I feel like a bit of an expert.
Well, you know the area really well. The suburbs.
Yeah.
You've been around.
No, it's wonderful.
Legacy. You are building it. Obviously, in a subtle way, or in a more vocal way. What would you like to be remembered by? I know you're young, and we're not talking about just that, but I think the sooner you know this, the more likely you are to build it.
Yeah. I think for me personally, you got to firstly ask the question, how has God made me?
Yeah.
Like, He's made me on purpose for a purpose.
Yes.
And I know God's made me a creative thinker.
Yeah.
So one of my heart's desires is to develop creative people within the city of Perth, creative Christian, Jesus-following creatives, and help activate them for gospel-centered artistic expression across the city. Mm-hmm. So it's not for the benefit of a church, but the benefit of the city.
Yeah.
I remember reading a wonderful book called Beauty Will Save the City.
Wow.
And it describes how the church has done a good job in some ways of proclaiming truth.
Yes.
The truth of the gospel.
Yeah.
We've also done a reasonably good job at presenting works of the gospel, or the goodness of the gospel, in terms of justice, and helping the poor. I mean, there's still things to do, obviously. But when it comes to the beauty of the gospel, go back 300 years ago when the Renaissance was unfolding, and You saw the beauty of the gospel expressed, but we've lost a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think what I'd love to leave a legacy of going is like there's nothing more beautiful than the gospel.
Yeah.
And how can we activate our artists within our church? And artistry is so vast. Like there's so many demonstrations of artistry or creativity.
Yeah.
Everyone's creative. It's probably more that sense of artistry.
Yeah.
How do we present the gospel in a beautiful way? So if there's anything that really stirs me, yes, I love the church.
Yeah.
But sitting in our churches as creative people who are artists, who are yet to be activated for gospel purpose.
Yeah.
And I suppose if I said anything about legacy, I'd love to see in Perth a sort of a tidal wave of creativity that has gospel influence over our city. That'd be the thing that I'd love to see develop. And, we're taking little steps towards it at the moment, but it's only very, very new.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, so I don't know if that makes sense. But
it does. No, I'm thinking in so many ways you can be creative. Obviously, we know the music and drawings and movies, but I'm also thinking in terms of architecture, in terms of other, there's this beauty in so many aspects of nature as well. Landscape architecture, for example.
Come on.
There's so many other things that we haven't even, we've almost lost. I mean, you look at the palaces, the castles of the past. There was beauty in all of that.
Yes.
Not just in the beautiful windows and the mega chapels and monasteries and churches, but in everything.
So true.
And I think today, bringing that to the forefront is very important, because a lot of people don't understand that they have the freedom to be creative. In the kingdom aspect.
Oh, so true.
So,
and there's so much room for creative expression.
Limitless.
Yeah. If the gospel is the most beautifulest thing in all of creation, there's so much of an avenue for expression.
That's right. You
and
should
I
write
think,
a book on this.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited about it.
I mean, even the fact that it's good news, we don't share it as good news enough. But, there's beauty in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's beauty in it.
So I think there's more to come relating to that space.
Well, you keep aflaming that gift in you and aflame it in others as well.
Yeah.
I've learned recently, Adam, that the most important meeting is the one-on-one meeting. And if you can aflame one person, you've done a lot more than most people. So don't underestimate the power of one.
Yeah, amen.
Start one fire at a time and just launch them, because God will do amazing things. I've learned a lot from you today.
Oh, it's good.
And I'm sure our listeners and people who watch this show also have learned so much. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, you've heard Adam's story and his love for the city and for the city of Coburn as well, where he is ministering for his people there, and also the love for creative ministry, developing and launching the creativity in people to shine Jesus and to show the beauty of the Lord out there in the community. Well, if you have a creative mind or heart, or you have a gift from the Lord in that creative space, why don't you bring it out into the gospel show, in the sense, show it out there, show everybody how wonderful Jesus is, and shine the beauty of the Lord through that manifestation of the gifting that the Lord has given you. And we'd be excited to find out how God has enabled you to do that. You can watch the show on YouTube, you can listen on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and many, many other channels out there. Please share, distribute this, and drop us a rating and some feedback, and come back next time at Kingdom Stories from Down Under.
Thank you for joining us on Kingdom Stories from Down Under. We'd love it if you would subscribe, rate, and share these stories with your wider community. And remember, every story is worth sharing, including yours.